The trade deadline hangover continues. The White Sox were swept by the Texas Rangers. Sox lost the finale 5-3. For a moment, it looked like the White Sox were going to really punish Max Scherzer early on, but 3 runs in the first was all the Sox could get. Luis Robert Jr. rested for his birthday, and Trayce Thompson made his return, celebrating with a hat trick at the plate. Sox head to Cleveland, and Mike Clevinger gets the series going against his former team.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong, die-hard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Chicago White Sox will take on the Cleveland Guardians on Friday. Mike Clevinger will be on the hill. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Woo! State of the Sox, 43-67. Let that just sink in for a moment. Maybe you have already, and that's what's giving you nightmares and indigestion. 43-67, 5-13. Since the All-Star break. It is ugly. And again, it's beyond just that record. There's a lot of stuff behind the curtains that I am not happy about with this organization. And it's a sad state of affairs. White Sox were swept in Texas, losing that finale 5-3. You know, the White Sox got it going early on against Scherzer. And I thought, okay, Scherzer couldn't find the plate at all. He just did not have the command. And, Steve Stone talked about it. When you got a guy like Max Scherzer, an all-star, he's probably a Hall of Famer with the body of work that he has put together. It's his first start, in a Texas Rangers uniform here since the trade. Maybe a little shaky, but he's a veteran, and he just couldn't find it. You got to get to him early. Stone mentioned you get to these guys early because they will get into a groove. We've seen this before with other pitchers this season. I remember a game back in Minnesota a long time ago. Feels like forever ago, but it was this season. Maybe it was Lopez against Lopez in Minnesota, where the Sox, they absolutely could have put him away early, but they let him off the hook. He settled down, was lights out the rest of the game, and the Sox lost that game. So kind of a similar situation. Scherzer, he threw a ton of pitches. He was able to go, I think, 6 or 7. He settled down after, and the Sox could have done far more damage than just those 3 runs. But again, and that was it for the rest of the game offensively for the White Sox. So just like on Wednesday, Sox had the bases loaded in the finale in the first inning. And Scherzer, again, just couldn't find the plate. He walked in a run, and Gavin Sheets, how about it? Bullish on Gavin Sheets is Rick Hahn, and he came through. Sox were able to score 3 runs. Absolutely should have had more. The foot on throat mentality. I've been talking about it for a long time. Back on Good Guys Talk Back with my co-host Pat Hester. I've talked about it here with Locked On White Sox. Grifol even mentioned it not too long ago, of having that mentality of you're just putting teams away, stomp on throats, so to speak. You blood in the water, and you get after a team, a pitcher, and just pile the runs on. get to them, as soon as possible and make it hurt. They just didn't have that. Sox haven't had that at all, really, this season. And, that early offense was it for the Sox on Thursday afternoon. Eloy Jimenez was not in the starting lineup. He did have a pinch hit opportunity. And Luis Robert Jr. celebrating a birthday. And, he's going to take a day off on his birthday. He was not in the lineup. He did not play. Benetti made some comment about, it was an evening game on Wednesday and then a day game on Thursday, and he's played in a lot of games this year. I guess, and it's his birthday. I mean, there's been years where I've taken my birthday off at work for sure. It's a special day. And I just honestly, I don't get it. There's something with some of these guys that, and I'm not just singling, Luis Robert Jr. taking his birthday off. That's not necessarily it, but there's just other stuff, and it's tough to articulate. But you see this almost lack of hunger, this lack of desire, this lack of intensity with this ball club in these players, and it's just continued, right? And Pedro Grifol just doesn't seem like he knows how to turn things around. Maybe he's just putting his hands up and saying, you know what, these aren't the guys. These aren't the guys that I need. I don't like this type of culture they're bringing. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors in the clubhouse and beyond. If there's cliques, we've heard about cliques in years past with the White Sox and, different pockets. And, maybe guys just never were able to buy into what Grifol wanted. They're going to do it their own way. Hey, I'm playing my way because this is how I'm going to get to, by benchmarks, my numbers for my brand when I hit free agency or, whatever that case may be, instead of more of a team-oriented culture, in it to win it. We're all, pulling on the same rope in the same direction, so to speak. So, there's more to that we'll get to in this episode. It keeps popping up, this sense of culture. Touki Toussaint was on the hill for the White Sox. 5 1/3, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 4 walks. Got to clean that up. I want him to be auditioning. Go ahead and audition for the 2024 starting rotation. Why not? You want it? Show it. He's got some stuff, and he's got some durability, but we can't walk guys. We cannot keep walking guys. Other teams are disciplined. We are not as a team. You got to get out of that. That's the Kopech problem. And it's not just them two. It's the rest of our pitching, our staff. He did strike out 9 guys, though, did Toussaint. Gave up 2 home runs. His ERA sub-4, 3.92. Sox offense, 3 runs, 9 hits. Trayce Thompson was in the lineup. Welcome back, his 3rd time through the organization. 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Welcome back, Trayce. Grandal 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. I feel like it's just a matter of time where we're going to DFA Grandal. We're going to be done with the Yasmani Grandal experiment. Maybe once September hits, and who knows. Sox struck out 14 times and walked twice. Colas was 2 for 4. TA and Benintendi each had 2 hits. Tim Anderson's been staying up in that leadoff spot lately. He's got his OPS up to, drumroll, 576. Sox were 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position, 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position in the series. Speaking of Thompson, this was from Scott Merkin. But in this current reshape of rebuild being employed by the White Sox, a high character player such as Thompson matters in the equation. General Manager Rick Hahn brought up that point after the deal was announced. Character always matters. Makeup, fight, energy, desire, Hahn said. How you treat each other, teammates, how you accept differences within the different cultures that you deal with in the clubhouse matters. So it's always part of our analysis at this deadline. We're trying to acquire as much as we can for the organization that fits with that. Frankly, when you're moving veteran guys and we're calling up young guys to fill the spot, The deals are as much about building for the future as they are about doing something for that White Sox clubhouse right now. Trayce helps with that. Absolutely. He's a pro, and he was good to reconnect with. Offense in this series, Trayce didn't help on Thursday, but it wasn't only him. White Sox 1 home run, 3 walks, 42 strikeouts. Rangers 7 home runs, 11 walks, 24 strikeouts. The lack of discipline at the plate has been a problem all season long. As I'm winding down my time with Locked On White Sox, I'm reflecting on, some of the things that, I've talked about, and some of the topics and some of the, discussions that I've brought up. And I go back to the off season and all these different, articles, well-written articles, James Fegan of The Athletic, or Lamont Pope in the Tribune, Daryl Van Scoven of the Chicago Sun-Times, and more about like the approach with the new hitting coach and Castro, and how we were going to be practice taking pitches and plate discipline. And then it wasn't working out early on. And Pedro Grifol kind of said, whoa, this takes time. This is an art form almost to have the patience and the discipline. That was back in April. I have not seen any progress whatsoever. And that's an issue. And that's where I would assume, again, who's making the decisions, who's in charge here. It's kind of this, circular conversation, but, he's got to be held accountable. It's like, well, what coaching staff, what were you trying to implement? Were players just not able to do it? Is that an issue? You were asking them to do it. You were teaching this. This was getting coached. These techniques were practiced in the offseason and in the spring, and nobody bought into it. That is an issue. And maybe they just don't have the personnel. They don't have the players that can do it. And maybe it's just an all-wide coaching staff issue. I mean, everybody's got to go. It's a race for last place in all of baseball. Oakland is with 30 wins, Royals 35, Colorado 42, and then the White Sox 43, with Washington right behind at 46. So I don't know if you're going to be able to catch Oakland and how bad they have been. Maybe the Royals, maybe Colorado. That's sad, though. That is so sad that we're talking about this right now. I was bullish. And now that I think about it, 90 wins is what I thought this team was capable of. I was like, yeah, I'll buy into return to accustomed levels, health, and, maybe things going our way. New culture from Pedro Grifol and the new coaching staff. Maybe a chip on the shoulder from these guys because of how they played last year, which was 500 baseball. And we thought that was absolutely awful. And here we're counting down to maybe they're going to be the worst in baseball. Again, I don't think they're going to catch Oakland, but maybe Kansas City and Colorado are attainable. It's just crazy. And there was more talk of culture in the post game with, Ozzie and Chuck was kind of peppering him with talk of like, well, during your managerial times, which Ozzie is more than happy to give stories about in 2004, of course, 2005 and beyond. And it really sounds like Ozzie, trusted the people that he brought in so much, and, what the expectations were. And, he made a comment of like the way a player might play, looking out for themselves as a player, not buying into what they're trying to do at a team. And Ozzie did not stand for that because it reflected then him. If the team lost, his job is, on the line. And it was just trying to get everybody to buy in and trusting your coaching staff that they would hold everybody accountable. And I don't know, maybe that's just not the case here. And it just sounds, again, like the way there's more culture conversations. It's like, well, obviously Grifol's not the guy then. How do you keep him around and everybody else? It's almost like you got to start all over again. It's an absolute mess, a real true mess. Yasmani Grandal might be gone before the season is up, but I don't think he's going to be wearing a White Sox uniform next year. Sebi is not the long-term solution. So the White Sox have stockpiled catchers recently. More on that in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can make sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your car, just your ride to My Garage, and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Our White Sox face off against the Guardians on Friday. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. So there definitely feels like a focus on catchers, right? When the draft happened and during this trade deadline, I think back to when was the last young catcher that I was really excited about that kind of produced. I kind of have to go back to Miguel Olivo back in, early 2000s. And then he was traded to Seattle for Freddie Garcia, which it hurt at the time. I remember talking to Sox fans, some friends of mine, like, man, this guy's got a cannon for an arm. He's reliable behind the plate. I kind of like his bat. What are we doing here? And, Freddie Garcia was the right decision, obviously. Without Freddie Garcia, I don't know. I don't know what happens in 2005. He was such an important piece. So you got to go back then, and obviously A.J. Przinsky came in the off season of 2004. We were, I think, with him till 2012, and the Sox kind of floundered. Zach Collins, that was just a horrible experience. That went absolutely nowhere. And we've been with Yasmani Grandal since the off season of 2019. He was signed, and now it just, this is the end for Yaz, and we're going in a different direction. And what is that direction? It just feels like developing young catchers, finding young catchers has been such a problem for the White Sox. So this was from Daryl Van Scoven in the Chicago Sun-Times recently. Dumping cash on a switch hitting receiver with plate discipline, power, and very good framing ratings looked like an aggressive move, signaling serious Sox intentions to win in 2020 and beyond. But Grandal never started more than 76 games in a season due to injuries, and his defense, not particularly good before he got to the Sox, was an issue. His framing ranking dipped to 39th this season per Baseball Savant, and he's 47th in defensive runs saved. The Sox's 16% caught stealing rate ranks tied for 21st in the majors, a figure for which pitchers are also responsible. Teams have attempted 90 steals against the Sox, second to the Guardians with 93. Seby Zavala, who turns 30 this month, ranks 10th in framing and 21st in runs saved among catchers, but is batting 155, 207, 304 with 7 home runs in 66 games compared to Grandal's 250, 316, 380 line with 8 home runs in 88 games. Perhaps it was the urging of first-year manager Pedro Grifol, a former minor league catcher and a major league catcher's coach, that the Sox addressed the position with not one but 2 acquisitions in their flurry of trades that shipped out 6 pitchers and infielder Jake Berger before the trade deadline. Edgar Caro, 20 years old, came with left-hander Kai Busch from the Angels organization in the trade for Lucas Giolito and Lopez. Corey Lee, 25 years old, came from the Astros system in the Kendall Graveman trade. Caro is the higher-ranked prospect. Lee has 12 games of major league experience and is catching at AAA Charlotte, prepping for a likely promotion to the White Sox this season. Lee is playing again after getting over an oblique injury. You're the captain back there. You're the quarterback. That's what I've always wanted to be, Lee said, playing behind Martin Maldonado with the World Series champs Astros in 2022 showed Lee how a catcher handles a pitching staff on and off the field. He taught me a lot, Lee said. I will make it my way. But he taught me how to be a professional catcher. And over there in Houston, they knew how to win. I want to bring that over to the White Sox. The Sox have done a poor job of drafting, Scovin wrote, and developing catchers. Yep. They selected a hit first catcher, Zach Collins, with the 10th overall pick in 2016. Collins is a career 185 hitter with 11 homers in parts of 4 seasons with 3 teams. And when last seen in the majors, went 1 for 25 with the Pirates in 2022. Before trading for Caro and Lee, they used a 4th-round pick on Ole Miss catcher Calvin Harris in this year's draft. So good stuff from Van Scovin there. And it definitely feels like there's a focus, which I appreciate. Anytime someone asked me from a different Locked On show, they said, hey, what are the White Sox looking for when they're looking to trade off some of their talent? And I said, we need catching depth. We need catchers. We need some arms. But we need catching depth, and the Sox went after it. Interesting stuff from Lee talking about how they do things in Houston, and that's important too. Bringing guys over that if you're not going to bring coaches and executives that know how to play in a winning culture, maybe I guess try to get players. Now, will veterans listen to some of these young players? Like a Lee, who knows how to do it in a system that has produced winning for many, many years. I don't know, but I do believe they're on the right track here with bringing in as many catchers as possible. White Sox have a winning record against the Guardians this year, but playing in Cleveland always poses a problem. More on that in a moment. Sox in Cleveland this weekend. I have been to Cleveland once, the city a couple times, but to see the White Sox play the Guardians, which were the Indians at the time, you got to go all the way back to 2001. I'm pretty sure Jose Canseco was on that team, and it was Jacobs Field, and I had a great time. Sox won. You got to check out the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's not a bad drive at all. So I'm due. I'm well overdue to get to that stadium and to that area. Maybe next year, check that out. But Clevinger, Kopech, and to be determined on Sunday here as I record. Cleveland 53 and 56. They were active or inactive at the deadline, depending on who you talk to. But the Cleveland front office, they've got a good front office. I think it's a trusted front office from what I understand from other Cleveland fans. And it seems like despite some of the moves that they made and shifting things around, they'll still find a way to probably win the Central. Who knows? Sox are 6-4 against Cleveland this year. Mike Clevinger is 2-1 with an ERA of 2.91 in 16 strikeouts in 4 appearances against the Guardians in his career. His former team, of course. Clevinger has faced his former squad twice this season while wearing a White Sox uniform. A combined 11 innings, 8 hits, 2 earned runs, 4 walks, and 8 Ks. He has pitched well against his former squad. So we'll see what he has got. All eyes really for me are going to be on Kopech. And again, it's these pitchers. I don't know what's going to happen with Clevinger after this season, if they're going to pick up the option, if they're going to keep him around, or they're going to say, you know what, you bring some baggage and, the injury stuff, we're going to try to do better. Or is it the White Sox saying, we're desperate. We just do not have a starting rotation. We're going to have to bring you back. We'll see. Kopech will be back, and I'm assuming he's going to be in the starting rotation, even though there's questions of, maybe he can be in the bullpen. I think he's a guy that can be a starter. He absolutely can be. He should be a starter, and it's just, when are we going to see some consistency from Michael Kopech? And that's what I'm really hoping these last 2 months. I hope he stays healthy and there isn't an injury or something that we find out about that's got to shut him down and he's going to have to get ramped back up again. But if he could stay healthy, I just want him to, have a good rest of August and September, go into the offseason on a high note, feeling good. He can have a body of work, a video to look back on, when he's going through his off-season program and where his motion is at, and how the ball's coming out of his hands with the variety of different pitches. Something's got to give, though, because if we're not going to see anything from him through August and September, I think the White Sox, if they think that they're going to contend in 20 and 24, which to me it's laughable, but if they think that, they truly think that, and they believe it, not just pitching, this to us is ticket holders and all this kind of stuff, then you have to move away from Kopech. If you're getting absolutely nothing from him through August and September, and you're like, we have to use him in a different way. We've got to find a different way. Hopefully he gets it together. Hopefully he can string together some, consistent starts to prove to, the organization, to fans, and really to himself that he can do this. So we will see. Thank you so much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcasts. We are on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. White Sox take on the Guardians on Friday. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. And hey, everydayers, again, appreciate it. On the next episode, I'll recap the weekend that was for our White Sox. Hopefully some good news. And if you're interested, if you got the stomach for it, any more White Sox content, I'll be pushing out a new Good Guys Talk Back episode Sunday night, usually at 8 p.m. on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe, but that audio will drop and be available everywhere. Appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.